Great to be here with you guys today. So let's do it. For those, did I introduce my name yet? I forgot with the whole mic thing. I'm Paul Rudd. I'm here. I'm just kidding. Man. My name is Matt Bellomo, one of the pastors at this awesome church. So did you know that God's story plus your story equals his story? See what we did there? So that's what we're going to talk about today. But I have a question. We're going to get a little interactive. Anybody ever been scared to death to do something that you knew you had to do? I'm talking like you know you got to do this, but you are like unbelievably terrified, hyperventilatingly, brown paper bag type nervous, that you got to go through something. Maybe, for instance, you have to have a conversation with somebody. You know you have to have a conversation with someone. Anybody ever have an awkward conversation? If not, you're not human. It's fine. But welcome to church anyway. So you have a difficult conversation, and you know you have to have it. It's scheduled. You're meeting at the good old diner, because that's where all difficult conversations happen. And you're meeting at the diner, and you know it's gonna happen. It's gonna come. And you're super unbelievably nervous. And then 3 hours over some pancakes that you don't even eat, and you do it, and you're here, and and you walk out, and you're like, what just happened? I don't even know what just happened. But you're terrified. You pull in a parking lot. You're like, if I just pull out, I don't think anybody will even ever know. Everything's gonna be fine. Or maybe, anybody ever have to give a presentation or a speech, like at work or in class or something? Anybody ever take speech class? Like public speaking? Did you not hate your life for signing up for that? So you had to take public speaking, and you know you have to give a speech. You've been working on it, a presentation, maybe a month, a couple weeks, whatever it is, 2 weeks before. You're nervous. Every single day leading up to that dreaded day, and it's always like a Friday, because like the end of the week, because why would we get it over with in the beginning of the week? So it's always like all those days you get increasingly nervous, and your anxiety continues to build. And then the day comes, and there's no amount of deodorant or antiperspirant on the planet that could keep you from the nervous sweats. Anybody ever have nervous sweats? I'm good. Right, and then you're normally not like a handkerchief or a paper towel, or anything kind of person, but this is one of those days where you straight up took the stinking shower towel with you because you're wiping everything down. And we've been there before? And you're nervous, and you know you got to go through with something, but you're like, man, if there's someone else who can do this for me, that would be amazing. And you're even thinking at that point in time, felony or not, if I pull the fire alarm, I feel like I'll be forgiven for that, because anything to get me out of that moment. We've all been there before. And sometimes it's a little more serious than that, where you think, man, I think we got to move my family, or I got to pull my kid out of this school and put him into this school, or I got to change jobs, or maybe you're a boss, you got to let somebody go, and you're like, man, you really like them, they have a great family. It's not really about them, but they're just not kind of cutting it, and you have to have that conversation. And I think sometimes we read the Bible without all of those emotions in them. So what I'm trying to say is, sometimes we always pray, God, if you just show me the outcome of this 3-hour diner conversation, I'll be a little more willing to step into the diner and sit in that booth. You know what I'm saying? If I know the end from the beginning, I think I'll be all right. And we read the Bible that way because we know the end from the beginning. We know what's going to happen. Even in certain stories, we know that when David picks up the thing and he slings it, the giant's going down, he's going to cut his head off, and we're going to celebrate. We all know that. But if you think about what he was going through at the time, it's like, wow, I got to do. So it's interesting. I want to read you a story. I think sometimes we can almost like knowledge our way out of the emotion of what we're reading in the Bible. Does that make sense? So we know what's going to happen. So I'm going to read you a story. A guy named Ananias, he went to go see a guy named Saul. Some of you guys know who Saul is. He was a big old bad guy who was killing some Christians. And so I'm going to read you like 9 or 10 verses real quick. Acts chapter 9. It says, now there was a believer in Damascus named Ananias. The Lord spoke to him in a vision, calling, Ananias. Yes, Lord, he replied. What a good guy. The Lord said, go over to Straight Street to the house of Judas. When you get there, ask for a man from Tarsus named Saul. He's praying to me right now. I have shown him a vision of a man named Ananias coming in, laying hands on him so he could see again. Awesome. But Lord, exclaimed Ananias, I've heard many people talk about the terrible things this man has done to the believers in Jerusalem, and he is authorized by the leading priests to arrest everyone who calls upon your name. But the Lord said, go, for Saul is my chosen instrument to take my message to the Gentiles and to the kings, as well as to the people of Israel. And I will show him how much he must suffer for my name's sake. So Ananias went, and he found Saul. He laid his hands on him and said, Brother Saul, the Lord Jesus, who appeared to you on the road, has sent me so that you might regain your sight and be filled with the Holy Spirit. Instantly, something like scales fell from Saul's eyes, and he regained his sight. Then he got up and was baptized afterwards, and I love every story that has this in it. He ate some food, and he regained his strength. Yes, God. Now we're going to pray for everybody to get that vision and the scales to fall from everybody's eyes, and we're going to bring in all the deepest and the darkest sinners, and we're going to pray for them. We're going to lay hands on them, and they're going to regain their strength, and we're going to eat pizza, and we're going to celebrate. In fact, we're going to celebrate so big, we're going to bring in like the chicken parm today. We're going to skip the pizza, and we're going to have all these amazing things, and all the sinners are going to come, and they're all going to get saved. They're all going to go out. They're going to reach our communities. They're going to reach Long Island, and everything's going to be awesome because that's how every story turns out. Whew. I was reading that, and I was like, man, that just seems too easy. I was reading it, I was like, hold up. I feel like there's more to this story. So I reread it. When you go home, because I'll save us time constraints, reread Acts chapter 9 and read it as if you were Ananias. I'm talking like in the moment with real life feelings, like a human being with emotions. Read it and pretend that you're him. We'll go through it a little bit today. But I think sometimes we take all that out of the stories because if you think about it, so you're telling me your boy Ananias has to go up to a guy who kills people just like Ananias. Count me in, God, you know what I mean? Like, send me to that guy. That's where I want to go. I want to go to the killer guy. That's awesome. That's where I want to be. So it's like I got to go, and not only do I have to go up to him and say words to him, but I also need to have physical I need to touch. I need to lay hands on this guy. I got to pray for him. It's like, all right, cool. God, I'm ready. I'm in. It's just whatever. But if you really think about it, now listen, let's repose the opening question that we posed to ourselves to Ananias. Have you ever been terrified to do something that you know you had to do? I would beg to argue that Ananias was terrified. Like, it's cool that God literally spoke to him word for word. I need you to go. I need you to do this. I need you to go to this person who's going to be in this house, in this town. I need you to go and do it. And for us, that would be like, I want God to speak to me like that. That's cool. That's what I want. I want to know word for word. But God literally, word for word, told him to go up to a guy who's killing everyone. He literally told him to do something that I'm sure he didn't want to do. He literally told him, listen, I need you to go, and I need you to be the bridge for Saul, because Saul is over here. He's in hell, and I need you to smell like hell for Saul a little bit. I need you to get in there. I need you to pull him out. The only problem is he's way down in there. I mean, my dude is like in it. He's like Satan Jr. right now. He's like in there. And you need to just like, jump in. You got to get him. And I don't think as a human being, Ananias was just like, I'm in. And you could tell because you read in here, Ananias kind of questions God. Anybody ever been there before? And it's okay, it's okay to question at times, but you know what, man, we need to obviously just know what God has called us to do. But man, I think he had to be thinking like, man, you want me to go where? To who? I think you got the wrong guy. Either he's the wrong guy or I'm the wrong guy. One of us is the wrong guy. Send somebody else. Send me to somebody else. I think he knew what he had to do, but how many people know that even if you know what you have to do, it doesn't necessarily make doing it any easier, right? Sometimes you know exactly what you got to do. That doesn't mean it's easy. That means sometimes it could mean it's hard. So what do we do? I was thinking about this. How do we follow through when we find ourselves in an Ananias situation? I think the first thing we got to do is we got to fight through the fear. I think we need to fight through the fear. How do we do that? Don't listen to your own voice. Listen to God's voice. Because I think so many times we have the tendency to talk ourselves into things that we shouldn't be doing and out of things that we should be doing. Come on, somebody get honest in church on a Sunday. Sometimes we talk ourselves right out of stuff that we should be doing. It's easy to do that. It's like one of those situations. And why do we do that? Because oftentimes the things we should be doing come with a little bit of a challenge. We want things to be super easy. Sometimes the first step onto the bridge is like It's like a high one, or like you're over here and you got to like. I think my hip just cracked. Anybody hear that? Okay. Sometimes it's not as easy as we want it to be, but the things that we shouldn't be doing, those are the shiny, nicely wrapped things with the bows on them, and that's the thing that we want to do. But it's like when you talk, when you have to have that conversation at the diner, and you're like, man, maybe it'll just blow over. And like 3 months from now, he's gonna grow, I'm gonna grow, we're gonna be great people, we're just gonna meet somewhere at some point in time. It's gonna be like, hey man, what's up? Nothing ever happened. Awesome, we're good. And sometimes we talk ourselves out of something that we need to be doing, but then other times we talk ourselves into things that we shouldn't be doing. Like, man, I'm really not feeling, I'm just not feeling it right now. I'm not feeling it with my spouse. I'm just not getting the things that I need to be getting. So after he or she goes to bed, I'm just gonna watch some porn. I'm gonna watch some things that I shouldn't be watching. I'm just gonna do some things that I shouldn't be doing because you know what? It makes me feel good. It's okay. I mean, I'm not justifying it. It's just a reason. And then a couple weeks later, a couple months later, you go on a business trip, you wind up sleeping with someone who's not your spouse, and then you get home and you're like, boom, your marriage is over. And you're like, how did I get here? It's because we talk ourselves, we listen to our own voices sometimes, or the voice of the enemy that's tricking us instead of listening to God's voice. See, there's a lot to learn from Ananias' story here, and I think one of the things, sometimes it's not just an obedience problem that Christians have. A lot of times, I think it's a predetermination problem. What do I mean by that? I think so many times we need to predetermine our obedience levels. There's certain things in my life that are just straight up off limits that I'm not going to do. Why is that? It's because I've already determined what I'm going to do and what I'm not going to do. I think Ananias in this story, he already determined in his life, if God ever tells me to do something, I'm going to go and do it. That's why he eventually winds up going and doing it. I think for us, so many times we keep a bridge up. There's sin over here. We had sin here. We had alcoholism. We had abuse. We had lying. So many times we talk about all these crazy, serious things, and sometimes dishonesty is the worst thing that we do. And we have lying, and we have cheating. We have all these different things here. And you're like, you know what? I could burn this bridge, but maybe I'll just keep it up. Looks good. I built it. I'm going to keep it. When really we should be burning those bridges and putting up walls, right? We should be building borders to protect ourselves from going back to the sin that we used to be. And I'll tell you a funny story. On Thursday night this week, for those of you who don't know, I'm married to Pastor Gina, who is somewhere in here right now doing amazing things, because everything she does is amazing. And she's really good looking. So Thursday night, there's a point to this. Thursday night, I was like, gee, man, I feel like I'm letting you down. I feel like a beluga whale. I feel like all I've been eating are carbs. I had pizza like twice this week. I feel like I'm just not worthy, man. I have like a nervous breakdown. And so I said, I'm going to the gym in the morning. You sleep because you're perfect. I'm going to get up, and I'm going to go to the stinking gym. So I predetermined I'm going to do this. So I wake up the next morning, and I was like, I feel like I'm not as bloated as I was last night. Maybe I was overreacting. What do you think? Gee, I know you always think I look good, so if you just... Oh, you're sleeping. I wound up going, but what I did was I predetermined what I needed to do, right? I predetermined, obviously a little bit of a silly example, but I predetermined it. See, I think I still tried to talk myself out of it. I was like, man, an extra half hour, 45 minutes, hour of sleep would be awesome. You know what? Maybe I'll be a pastor and I'll pray more instead. I'll just stay home. I'll still be up early, so it counts, but you just continue, you try to talk yourself out. And I think that's normal. I want us to know, like, that's a normal thing to do when we're about to go and do things that we need to do. I bet up until Ananias gets to Judas's house, he's on Straight Street. He's walking there. He's about to knock. I'm sure up until all those moments, man, he was thinking, am I really doing this? Is this really what God actually called me to do? And I think that's when he probably realized what we need to realize is that obedience doesn't always make sense. Obedience, obeying your parents, obeying your boss, obeying your people, sometimes it doesn't make sense. Obeying God, sometimes it doesn't make any sense. Like, did it make sense for Ananias to go and meet face-to-face with a terrorist? If I pointed somebody out right now and said, hey, I need you to go to the Middle East. I need you to sit down with the number one Christian killing individual in the world. And as soon as you get there, you're going to touch him. And you're going to pray for him. It doesn't really make any sense. Ananias wasn't like an FBI negotiator. He wasn't like a CIA, MLB, NBA, whatever those initials are. He wasn't one of those. He wasn't one of those guys. That wasn't his profession, at least as far as we're told. So he's not. So it doesn't make sense, right? Like this doesn't make sense. So does it make any sense that the guy that we would probably advocate for a death penalty in Saul, instead God was like, I'm going to save that guy. Doesn't make any sense. And beyond that, he's like, you know what? I'm going to use that guy. Well, like, God, there's probably a lot more people that are in here. Think about it. Ananias went to a guy who probably already killed and imprisoned people that Ananias already knows and loves. And now he's like, I'm going to walk in there. How am I going to be any different? I'm going to go in there. I got to pray for this guy. Do you think he's really going to let me approach him? All these crazy thoughts. Doesn't make any sense that Jesus gives a vision to a man who he took sight away from. That's a sermon right there. Somebody write that one up. It doesn't make sense sometimes to obey what God is telling us to do. But 1 Corinthians tells us this, that God chose the foolish things of this world to shame the wise. I love that verse. I love that God operates that way because you know what it does? It proves to us that we're not him. I'm not God. Everybody should have been like, yeah. Because we don't want any of us to be God. Because we're imperfect people as human beings. So I love the fact that God takes things that don't make any sense. There were better candidates for the job than Saul. But God takes him because he's going to confuse people. He's going to flip the script on everybody and say, you know what, I'm going to use this guy. And I'm going to take away something from him that you're going to give back to him because I want that moment to be so powerful. We don't always have to understand what God is doing. And I love that because, again, if we did, we would be God, wouldn't we? So we're not always going to get what God is trying to do, and that's why we call it faith. In this case, it's really like blind faith. Alejandro, get on the drums. I need like a... But seriously, that's why we call it faith. That's why it's trust. When you do a trust fall and you fall, you're trusting that someone's going to be there. When you're, that's why I think that like Pastor Mary just mentioned, sometimes the hardest thing for us to do is to trust God with our finances. Every week we talk about it, but it's like, oh God, I can, because we like to be in control. Anybody like to be in control? You like to be in control. It's like, God, no, I could do it. I could do it a little bit better. I can do more with I can do this. God, I know you want me to give some time, but I feel like I need that time though. I need it. I feel like I just keep it. When Jesus is over here saying, like, listen, I know all you see is a chasm right now. You don't even see the bridge. You don't see the bridge. All you see is a big hole here, and I'm telling you to get to the other side, and you don't know. I'm just telling you, just start running. Just start running, just start walking, just start running, just start walking, and all of a sudden, I will be there underneath you to help you get to the other side. But instead, we see the hole, and we think, man, I can't do that. He must have said the wrong thing. Maybe God's wrong. Man, all right, so I'm going to stay. I'll just stay. As soon as the bridge shows up, and we wait there when God's saying, man, just take the first step. Just take the first step. Just take the first step. And I think those are those times, those like horizon moments, those breakthrough moments where it's like, if God's not in this thing, it's going to fail moments. Those are the ones where we need to just jump. Because if God's not in it, we are going to fall. But if we know that God told us, God will get us there. I think Ananias, he knew where he had to go, and he knew what he needed to do. And the reason I think he was okay with it eventually is because he knew who his bridge was. He knew that Jesus was his bridge, and because he knew that Jesus was his bridge, he was then able to be the bridge of hope for Saul. He was able to cross the bridge to be someone else's bridge. You see how that works? When we rely on Jesus, Jesus then can use us to do the things that he needs us to do. It's awesome. And I think Ananias' obedience, even though it didn't make any sense, allowed him to be that bridge that changed the course of history as we know it. And that's why I think we can't underestimate our part in God's plan. Because if you think about it, see, this is where it gets good. This is where God's story plus your story equals his story. Because your particular part in God's overall plan is really what actually makes history. It changes the course of life forever. It changes the course of your life. It changes the course of life for those that are around you. It changes the course of life for us as a whole, as a church. So you can look at Ananias' part in here, in this story, and you can be like, man, it's kind of a small part. He prayed for a guy. I pray for a guy every week. Someone write about me? If you think about it, though, if you look at this story, that's what I'm saying, man, go back and just reread this thing like a human being with emotions. Think about what God asked Ananias to do. He didn't ask him to do anything incredibly huge. He asked him to hear. Then he walked. And then he knocked. And then he touched. And then he spoke. All of those things, Ananias was more than capable of doing. Does that make sense? God didn't tell him, hey, listen, you're going to pull some daredevil junk, and you're going to go up on top of your roof, and then you're going to jump across all these other roofs, and then when you get to the fire escape, you're going to swing down and into the window, and then you're going to land on Paul, and when you land on Paul, you got to kick him in the right cheek, because that's going to get his eyesight back, and then when you do that, you're going to get shot by something, or there's going to be a rhino in the room, and he's going to get you, and then you're going to come back to life, and then you're going to pray for him. He didn't ask him to do any of that kind of stuff. He's like, hey, can you walk? Yeah. Can you touch somebody? Yeah. Can you knock on a door? Yeah. All right, you're good. So many times I think we just wait as Christians for God to be like, once God tells me that I need to do this supernatural thing, then I'm going to know that it's God. When God's like, man, what? I already gave you the tools in your toolbox to get the job done. All you got to do is actually follow through. I don't think we have necessarily a tools problem. I think we have a follow-through problem. I think we have a courage problem. And that's all of us. I've been there. I've been there several times. I think God just asked us to do our part and to just kind of step across. Anybody ever felt that nudge like, man, maybe I should go speak to that person? Anybody ever been getting a haircut at the barber shop? And you're like, man, maybe I should just say something to my barber. Maybe this is the day. I feel like maybe I should just bring something up. Just say anything. Man, what a great event we had at church yesterday. Oh, church. Great. Started a conversation, right? But then you're like, oh, God, it's my only day off. I really just want to sit here and get pampered for like 20 minutes and just get my hair cut. And I don't really want to say anything because he's probably going to think I'm weird. And and then you walk out not saying anything and you're like, man, I just blew it. Everybody knows that feeling, right? You know that feeling. You guys ever hear of the butterfly effect? One of the definitions of the butterfly effect is the scientific theory that a single occurrence, no matter how small, can change the course of the universe forever. Isn't that crazy? So like what Ananias did, maybe what you do, or what you don't do, changes the course of the universe forever. Every decision you make, every breath you take, every move you make. Come on, somebody. Every breath you... So, is that not the creepiest song in the world, by the way? I'll be watching you. Like a weirdo. Sorry, stuck in my head. But everything you do, every decision you make, really, every time you listen to that song, you're going to be like, everything you do sets something else in motion. Think about this. Ananias in the story. He says yes to God's plan, keeps the plan in motion. Imagine he said no. Everybody know who Saul becomes? Saul, the guy he goes to see, the worst human being on the planet at the time. God completely changes who he is. He turns him into Paul. He gives him a new name. He says, you're going to go and you're going to do all these things. You're my sent one. You're going. You're going to go. You're going to do this. Paul starts the church as we know it today. Paul then he winds up in a city called Antioch with Barnabas, and that's where the term Christian happened. We might not even be called Christians if it wasn't for Paul. He writes 2/3 of the New Testament. Imagine Ananias says no. Where are we today? No idea. So because Ananias simply said yes, and he actually went over there, and listen, when he got to that door, I'm sure it was like, let me check the address again. Hold on, let me check. Maybe it's this one, it's this one, it's this one. Yeah, right? You ever been there, you take a couple steps, and you're halfway through, and you're like, nah, maybe, nah. If I sleep on it one more night, and God gives me another dream, and then I wake up, and somebody built a neon billboard in my room, then that's how I'm gonna know. That's how I'm gonna know. God, I just need one more sign. Lord, send me a sign. There's a song for everything. Don't underestimate your part in God's plan. Man, imagine if Ananias gets to the door and he chickens out and he runs away. In fact, think about this. Maybe there were other people before Ananias that God spoke to go and do the same thing, and they said no. And now we don't know who those people are because they're not written about because they said no. You ever think about that? That's what I'm saying. Sometimes we just read and we think, oh yeah, this is cool. Ananias went up to Saul. And he frolicked there through the meadows. And he just showed up at the door. But maybe somebody else said no before him. What if he said no? There's some big time implications. So I'm going to ask you guys a question. Where have you said no where you should have said yes? And are there opportunities today for you to say yes where you've been saying no? For instance, we have a whole group of kids that meet in multiple levels over here, ultra kids, every single Sunday. What if the next world changer is sitting in one of those classrooms? I believe there's one in there. I believe there's multiple in there. But somebody, man, you're like, man, I could do that. I can give an hour and 15 minutes on a Sunday and pour into some kids. But you're like, I'm at the ultra kids door and I'll just get my bagel. I'll come inside. I'm good. Somebody else will do it. We do that so many different times, right? When all there's someone that's just waiting for, Mr. Ken to be in there and just be like, you can do this thing. Jesus promises that when he gives you a dream, he's going to provide for you. Now all of a sudden this kid's 18 years old and he's like, man, Mr. Ken said that when I'm 18, that when he gives me a dream, he's going to provide for me. Maybe I can do this thing. And because you invested in someone, now we have someone who's going to invest in the world for the rest of their life. Or maybe somebody walks in, there's a woman who walks in, and she's been dealing with pain of abuse and divorce and abortion and all these other things that she's been through in life, and she's been a victim and all this stuff, and you weren't at your post as a guest relations because you'd never signed up because you were about to knock on the door, and you were like, eh. And now instead of that person who's going to become someone who runs this whole worldwide ministry that helps women all over the world is now leaving here dejected and rejected because we didn't have somebody who was. And we think, man, it's such a small thing. It's such a small thing standing at the door. Come on, everybody do this. You're in. It's good. You passed the test, the whole thing, man. You just interviewed right there. But the butterfly effect is real. And there is that ripple effect. So what do you want the beginning of your butterfly effect to look like? Do you want it to be a black hole where something should have been, or do you want it to be a spark that ignited something amazing 10 years from now? You never know what you're doing, what little thing you're doing is going to create in somebody else's life or something else or in some other ministry down the road. It's the same that goes for the church. And we need everybody to come in and continue this whole butterfly effect deal because everything that we do matters. Everything that we do matters. Picking up a piece of paper on the floor and throwing it out matters. Every single thing that we do matters. So we got to fight through the fear. I'm so thankful. I don't know if you're thankful, but I'm so thankful that Ananias didn't give in and run away. Because I guarantee he was sweating when he was walking up to that door. And it was hot where he was. And there was no air conditioning. And he was just, I'm thankful that he went through and he knocked on there and he said, you know what, I'm going to be the bridge of hope for somebody. I'm thankful that Ananias did that. I'm thankful that he went and he obeyed even when it didn't make any sense. I'm thankful that Ananias did that. I'm grateful because what's on the other side of this bridge doesn't always make sense. Who I have to reach to doesn't always make sense. The thing that I need to pull somebody out of doesn't always make sense. But I do know that my Bible says that my God is always, he's already in my tomorrows. He goes before me. So if he told me to go, he's already there. And that's the thing that we all need to remember, that when we start going, God is already one step ahead of us. The cool thing about God is he's also one step behind us and one step to the side of us, and he's just watching us and he's moving with us. And never underestimate your part in God's plan, because everything that we do matters. Every single thing that we do leads somebody else in one way, shape, or form. See, I don't think Ananias was necessarily thinking of Matt Bellomo when he knocked on that door. But I'm certainly glad that he decided to knock on that door anyway, so we could be here in this room today. So the same applies for us. In our Ananias moments, are we going to knock on the door and go in and go through with it? Or are we going to turn around? You don't necessarily need to know specifically which child by name you're going to impact that 10 years from now is going to do amazing things. You don't need to know which teenager in underground that you're going to impact that's going to go on to do amazing things. You don't need to know which adult you're going to initiate a movement in by doing whatever you got to do in serving. You don't necessarily need to know those specifics. God doesn't have to give those to us, but we do need to trust that God knows them. And when we trust that God knows them, we'll be able to, God, I know you're going to be underneath me. I know you're going to be underneath me. And I'm just going to continue to walk. So we need to run toward the bridge so that we can be the bridge. Amen? Come on, would you close your eyes as we pray today?